What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. In this one, it's my Game Week 21 team selection. So I'm going to show you how the team is shaping up, thoughts on transfers, captaincy, all that good stuff. And unfortunately, I'm also going to show you how I'm doing in Game Week 20 as well, which isn't very good. So if you enjoyed the video, make sure to give it a like and hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. So I am currently on 48 points, but I took an 8-point hit. I'll come on to what that was in a minute. I'm recording this on Wednesday morning, so the second round of games for the double haven't been played yet at the time of recording. So we've got Man United versus Palace and Man City versus Spurs. I think given that it's a Saturday deadline, if anything major happens to the team that changes my thoughts, I can always talk about that on Friday anyway, which is why the video is going out on Wednesday instead. So the 8-point hit was Kepa, Cancelo, Reece James and Mason Mount to Ederson, Ake, Luke Shaw and Fernandes. I talked about that on plenty of videos that I was thinking about doing that. Now on the deadline stream, I actually did those transfers bit by bit. So I knew that I was always going to do Reece James to Luke Shaw, so I did that move first. Then I decided that I wanted to take the punt on Fernandes because he had a double and there's an outside chance that he'll get one in Game Week 22 as well. So to fund that, I had to do Cancelo to Ake, and I wasn't quite sure about Cancelo's minutes. In the end, he played against Man United, so he and Ake have got the same amount of points. But I think I'm just about up on that move anyway because Mason Mount blanked. So I had 2 free transfers. So had I just done those 3 moves, things would be looking pretty good right now. I would just about be up on those moves with another game to go for all 3 of them if Ake starts again. But I also did Kepa to Ederson, and obviously Kepa went and got 10 points. So for the 8-point hit, I am down, and obviously I could have just done the other 3 moves and kept Kepa, but that is massive hindsight. I did say before any games were played that I would probably regret the Kepa to Ederson move because I hate having money in that goalkeeper position. And Kepa, look, he got 10 points. Part of that was making 5 saves. Maybe on another day he concedes. It is what it is. Hopefully over the long run it will work out. And I think if all 4 of those players play again, there is a chance that the hit will pay off. But obviously I could have just not sold Kepa in the first place. But I'm not going to be worrying too much about that. It is done. There's no point dwelling on it. We have to kind of look to the future instead. Elsewhere, apart from Fernandes' great goal, obviously where Rashford was just a genius and moved out of the way and didn't touch the ball, Rashford also scored again, picked up all the bonus points as well. He is on unreal form right now. And Trippier, what is there left to say about him? At some point soon, he will start blanking because that just happens in FPL and people are not going to be ready for it. But surely it's got to happen at some point. But for now, he just keeps picking up clean sheets, bonus points, assists, whatever it is. He's just great. Salah, rubbish again. Honestly, that Liverpool performance against Brighton was one of the worst I've ever seen them play. And obviously, Saka only got 6 points because he didn't get that second assist, which I think probably was, but whatever. And then Mitrovic scored a penalty, but obviously it goes down as a miss. So he's on 0 points as well. And the big thing to talk about is probably Haaland triple captain. Now, I know some people weren't necessarily up for triple captain, and that is fair enough. But I feel like there's a lot of hindsight takes now that it was always a stupid move, and I just don't agree that was the case. Obviously, I knew Man United were going to play better. I said that before the deadline, but I still thought that City would create enough chances that he might get at least 1 goal. I said that, didn't I, when I was talking about triple captain? 1 goal in the United game, 1 goal in the Spurs game. That would probably be enough to warrant the triple captaincy. It's far too early to say that it was a mistake because 1, he hasn't even played against Spurs yet, and 2, we don't know when everyone else is going to play it. So even if, Man United got that double in 22 and Rashford was triple captain against Palace and Leeds and he got 20 points, so you got 60 points from your triple captain, because I own both and I will triple captain Rashford anyway, I'm not going to lose out on, it'd be like 18 points, which isn't great. Obviously, I'd prefer to have those 18 points, but that's what I was trying to say last week, that it's not the end of the world. And also, Haaland's still got to play Spurs, right? I think at this point, knowing that I'm recording this before that game is played, I would take 9 points. And the reason I say 9 is because 1, that'll make 11 in total, and I've never had more than 11 from more than 10 from my triple captainship. But also, that is 1 goal and 3 bonus, or 1 goal, 1 assist. And I think I'd be okay with that from just 1 game left, given that we've not had anything so far. If he only gets like another 6 points and finishes on 8, you probably would say that is then a bit of a fail. But we've still got to see what the rest of the season goes like. So I wasn't that excited when I activated the chip. If you watch the deadline stream, when the deadline went and I'd taken the 8-point hit, I suddenly remembered I had the triple captain active. Not to say that I would have cancelled it, because I wouldn't have. That's just how little I kind of thought about it and how excited I was about it this week. Probably because Haaland was playing Man United as well. So I think anyone that hasn't activated it is probably absolutely loving life right now. But that's how things go. There is a lot more of the season to play. So hopefully things get better. Hopefully he scores against Spurs. I mean, ideal situation is Ederson saves a Kane penalty because lots of people have got Kane and I need some massive points from Ederson. But it is what it is. I'll stop rambling about Game Week 20. 48 points, 8-point hit. I've got 6 more players to play. Ederson, Ake, Haaland triple captain, Rashford, Fernandes and Luke Shaw. Let's see what happens. So let's look at my Game Week 21 team. Now I've got 1 free transfer because I took that 8-point hit last week and I've got 0.7 million in the bank. Now my overall strategy, unless injuries force me into it or anything like that, is to try and roll the transfer because ahead of Game Week 22 we should have a lot more information which is going to allow us to plan a little bit better kind of right up until Game Week 25 and possibly even beyond as well. So the Game Week 21 deadline is the 21st of January, but the Game Week 22 deadline isn't until the 3rd of February. And the reason there's that big gap is because the Carabao Cup fixtures, so the semi-final fixtures, will be played in that time, and so will the FA Cup 4th round games. So Man United, for example, they've got their Crystal Palace game tonight, then they've got their Game Week 21 fixture at the weekend, then they've got Carabao Cup, FA Cup, Carabao Cup before they even think about playing their fixture in Game Week 22. And obviously, I mentioned this before, and this is all down to the fixture gurus like James at Planet FPL, Ben Crellin on Twitter, etc. The teams that get to the Carabao Cup final, which right now looks odds on to be Man United and Newcastle United, might blank in Game Week 25. And if that happens, that might affect our transfer plans. Similarly, I've talked about Brighton quite a lot, that they could blank in Game Week 25, but depending on how results go, there is also a chance that they will just play that game week, in which case suddenly their players become a little bit more desirable for me. So, for example, I've got 0.7 in the bank. I could do Patterson to Estepinian, but if he's going to blank in 25, he's not as valuable to my squad when I've got possible Newcastle or Man United players to deal with. So that's why I want to roll if I can. I know some people will be saying, do I have to roll? No. If you've got issues with your team, you could make that transfer. Wait until you get the information ahead of Game Week 22. It doesn't necessarily need to be acted upon straight away. So if it's just a case that Man United and Newcastle are going to blank and you might have to get rid of some of their players, you don't have to do it straight away in Game Week 22. You've just got to start thinking about it. But having 2 free transfers does leave you way more flexible, which is why I'm going to try and do that if possible. Now let's talk about the actual team. Trippier we don't need to talk about. Ederson isn't going anywhere. Yes, okay, might be a little bit frustrating that I took out Kepa last week, but it's Wolves at home, so I'm going to bank on Man City getting a clean sheet. I think my 2 main questions / issues are Ake. You know, is he going to be nailed on? I mean, Stones is apparently back training. Diaz is back training. They've got Akanji, Laporte, Ake all to play centre-back. Obviously, Ake can play left-back as well, but Cancelo didn't do that bad against Man United. So it doesn't take much for Pep to kind of change his mind. So I'm a bit worried about Ake's minutes going forward, but I think with a fixture against Wolves at home, I've got to play him. And if he doesn't play, I just hope that he doesn't come on. And I've got Shaw on the bench anyway. So again, it comes down to, even if I wanted to use a transfer, who would I get? I think Brighton defence is someone that I want to look at because of the fixtures, but I don't necessarily want to make that move right now because there might be a better option next week. And also, just to kind of put it out there is a chance that Man United or Newcastle United don't go through the Carabao Cup semi-finals and get knocked out, in which case they will play in Game Week 25. So this is why it's important not to rush unless you absolutely have to. So I'm going to play Ake and bench Shaw. I guess a lot of people are probably having this same discussion themselves. Should you play the Arsenal defender, Ben White or Gabriel Saliba, whoever you've got, or should you play your Man United defender? The reason that I'm playing Ben White is because the chances of a clean sheet are better because they're at home. They've been the better defence so far this season. There is one other way I've kind of been looking at it. I think that both Man United and Arsenal will concede. And in that particular scenario, Luke Shaw is probably the more attacking defender if he plays left back. But what if he plays left centre back again? At that point, Ben White might be more attacking. So I think on paper, it just makes sense to go for the guy at home. Like Man United definitely improved, completely agree, both in attack and in defence. They're going to be a much tougher test for Arsenal than maybe they've had recently. You know, I like the Spurs game, for example, I think Man United will do better than that. But Arsenal have been brilliant, right? The top of the league, etc. So I'm probably just going to play Ben White. If I had Gabriel, I'd play him ahead as well. And I'm just going to keep Luke Shaw on the bench. And if I need to call upon him, it's not the end of the world to have to bring him on. I am a little bit concerned in general about my defence having Greenwood and Patterson. But that is something I want to fix over the next few weeks. And again, what happens in game week 25 and what happens in the Carabao Cup and FA Cup will play a big part in that. Because if Liverpool end up doubling soon, then I might want to get more of their players in than I do right now. I know right now everyone's thinking I don't want Liverpool players and stuff like that, but double game weeks changes people's perceptions of players, and I'm no different. So I don't want to move too early, because I have got ways I can spread money around. I'm just not quite sure how I want to do it right now. But for defence, I'm just going to stick with that, and I'm probably going to bench Luke Shaw. I might swap with Ben White, but right now that's how it is. So let's take a look at the midfield, and we'll start off with the Arsenal players, Martinelli and Saka. I've discussed them quite a bit already this week. Lots of people are, looking at double game week 23. Maybe they're not tripled up on Arsenal already. Who are the best options? And I would agree that Odegaard is definitely right up there. And if I was picking again, I probably would go Saka and Odegaard. But there's absolutely nothing wrong with Saka and Martinelli. And because of that, I've got no intentions to use transfers on them whatsoever. I think Saka, looking at my whole team, is one of the most untouchable players in it. As long as he's not suspended and he's fit, he's always going to be in the team because he's on penalties nailed and playing for one of the best sides in the league at the moment. He is one yellow card away from a suspension. So if he gets that against Man United, he would miss the game in game week 22. And maybe in that scenario, I would use it as an excuse to kind of move him on to Odegaard even possibly. And then the week after do Martinelli back to Saka. But that's only if he gets the yellow card. If he doesn't, I'm just going to keep those two. Lots of people keep mentioning Smith Rowe to me. And I would acknowledge that, yes, once he's built up a good bit of fitness, bearing in mind he's been out for a long time, he might take some minutes off Martinelli, but in terms of starts, I just do not see that happening anytime soon. The fixture schedule and stuff like that is still not brilliant. It's not necessarily a game on a weekend, then next weekend. There's still some midweek games and stuff like that. Arsenal are in Europe as well, so Smith Rowe might get minutes in those games. I don't think Martinelli stops starting anytime soon, right? So I'm not concerned about him whatsoever. There is part of me that thinks, especially on a 3-5-2, where I've kind of got that fifth midfield spot, which is taken up with Fernandes, but in the future could be someone else. It's a bit of a spot that I can punt on maybe a bit more than other people, because a lot of people have got double Arsenal, Rashford, plus one other, maybe De Bruyne, maybe Salah, maybe someone else. But for me, because I've got that fifth spot, I can go a little bit different. So Fernandes could go to Odegaard if I was and triple up on the attack if I was happy to get rid of Ben White for someone else, but I'm not sure if I am, because there's just not many defenders that I like right now. That's why I was talking about more information, because possibly I could do Fernandes to Odegaard and then use that money to do Ben White to Trent if Liverpool are going to double. And again, I know Liverpool defence not been great, Trent not really returning for a £7 million defender, but I would be happy to take the risk on a player that we know can produce great FPL points, or has done in the past, for a double. So that might change my thinking. But right now, I don't really have too many, no intention basically to get Odegaard in as well as Saka and Martinelli, unless things change a little bit. With Fernandes, I put out a tweet the other day saying, once you take an 8-point hit, is your team not supposed to look better? It was a bit of a joke, but lots of people said I need to wildcard. I think that's just a perception thing, because before this week, everyone was saying, double Arsenal attack, get Rashford in, have an Arsenal defender, Luke Shaw. I've got all those players. I just think the 3-5-2 makes it look a bit worse than it is. And of course, Fernandes against Arsenal away is not necessarily ideal, but there is a chance that Man United will get that double in game week 22. And if he does, he's one of the players that plays 90 minutes every single week. He's not necessarily got as much goal threat as the likes of Rashford, Martial when he's fit and stuff like that, but he's going to play every single game. So I'm going to keep hold of him for that. And whether they get the double or not, they're going to play Crystal Palace at home in game week 22, so there won't be a rush to get rid of Fernandes. But he is where I will pivot at some point and spend the money differently, either putting that money up front and going back to a 3-4-3, possibly putting it into defence, or just using that spot as a bit of a punt, right? So if, for example, Liverpool were to double, I could go Fernandes to Gakpo, when most people are probably not going to want to get him because they don't want to change any of their other four midfielders. So that's kind of why the spot is where it's at, or how it's being used right now. I know Fernandes is not really worth 10 million, but I don't feel like my squad is suffering by having him in the team. So that's why he's in there. Rashford, I don't even need to talk about, playing well right now. Such a good price. He's not going anywhere. With Salah, I know, it's time to get rid of him. But again, for who? I genuinely mean that. Who should I bring in for Salah right now? Like in game week 17, people were telling me that Almiron was essential. Well, he hasn't scored or done anything for 3 games now, so people want to sell him. I can't get De Bruyne because I've already got 3 Man City. That may be a mistake. We'll see over the next coming weeks. There are rumours that De Bruyne missed training, but he might still play against Spurs, so I'm not worried about that just yet. I can't get another Man United player. I can't get another Arsenal player because I'm already tripled up. I just struggle to see where I should go. The one move I could say might be worth doing is to reduce him down in price to someone like Mitoma or Solly March or someone like that, and just get Kane up front instead of Greenwood and go back to a 3-4-3 or just rotate the position. So if I don't want to play one of my other attackers, I can play my Brighton one. If I don't want to play my Brighton one, I can just bench them. But again, that's 2 transfers. So if I do that this week, it's for a hit. And yes, Liverpool have been bad, but Chelsea have also not been great, and it is at Anfield. So, look, I'm not expecting much from Salah. I would love him to get a penalty sooner rather than later because he's had 0 so far this year. But I just think, given the tweets I've seen from Ben Crellin about the fact that Liverpool could double in 25 depending on FA Cup results, it makes me think that I'm just going to keep hold of him. Because you know me, if Liverpool got a double and I've not got Salah, that is a problem. So I know you think for 21 weeks I've been making excuses to keep him, and maybe in some cases I have, but I genuinely do not see the point in using my 1 free transfer to get rid of Salah in a home game against Chelsea when there's so much more information we might have next week. And I'm not against getting De Bruyne or getting Kane at some point if I can, but it's not going to be this week. So the midfield's going to stay as it is. I don't see the point in using a transfer. And yes, it's not ideal that Man United are playing Arsenal, but it is what it is. Those players are mostly good long-term holds, so I don't want to get rid of them this week. And then up front, it's Haaland and Mitrovic. Now, I spoke about Mitrovic on yesterday's video and said that I probably wasn't going to sell him. I know sometimes I say things like there's no other options, and then people take that a little bit literally and they start replying with, you know, forwards you could go to. But I guess when I say that, I mean there's no standout options in my opinion, and especially for my team. So Martial, for example, is he going to be fit? It doesn't matter. I'm already on triple Man United. Nketiah I can't get because I'm already on triple Arsenal. Some people mention Isak and Wilson. I really like Callum Wilson. Looks to be nailed. I don't think Isak is going to affect his minutes too much. He's on penalties. Newcastle are great. Fixtures are good. But what if they blank in game week 25? That's 1 transfer to get them in and then possibly 1 to get rid of them. And I know people at this time of the season, they hate this chat about blank players because the argument is you get in those good players like Wilson, they get you enough points over those kind of coming weeks that it doesn't matter if they blank. And I get that, but if possible, you want to try and maximise the points by getting a different player that can get the same, maybe more points over those weeks that also has a fixture in 25. And that's what I'm thinking about. And we'll obviously know more about that ahead of game week 22. So I don't necessarily want to bring them in. Nunez or Kane, it would take a hit to get the funds to do Mitrovic up to them. And ideally, I would just change Greenwood at some point instead if I was going to get another forward in, just to give me better bench options, especially for the upcoming blank game weeks. And then the obvious one that a lot of people are looking at is Ivan Toney. And I don't hate that as a move, but I think Toney's got 2 good fixtures and then he runs into Arsenal away and Man United away in the next 3. Now, they're not necessarily awful fixtures for Brentford because Brentford are a good team. Tony's definitely going to play, etc. But he's also got those charges hanging over him. And I just don't know what's going to happen there. We still had no new information. I just don't think I want to take that risk. And ultimately, Spurs, on paper, is not necessarily a good fixture, but Fulham at home are decent. And I think Mitrovic will get chances. And of course, as we know, he's on penalties, which is a benefit for most other players, not for Mitrovic. But either way, he's got penalties. We assume he might have missed so many, he might come off them. But I'm not quite sure that will happen. But let's see. So I'm going to keep hold of him. I think for me, the way I'm thinking about it, is if my overall strategy is to hold a transfer if I can, would I be acting differently if that wasn't the case? So let's say there wasn't more information in 22 and I was happy to use a transfer. Would I do things differently? I'm not sure I would. Like, would I sell Fernandes to someone else just because he's got Arsenal away? Probably not. Would I be worried about my defence massively? Probably not. And would I do Mitrovic to Toney? I'm not sure if I would. So I'm kind of happy to make those decisions. Just quickly on Haaland. Obviously, I've not seen what he does against Spurs, but I'm probably going to catch him against Wolves at home. The only thing to say, I know earlier on in the season we were banging on about Haaland maybe getting rested, and it's very rarely happened. The turnaround time is quite quick. So they play Spurs on Thursday evening, and they play again on Sunday afternoon. Now, we know Haaland's going to play this game because of the fixture difficulty that it is, right? Playing against Spurs, Pep is not going to drop him or anything like that. There is a chance that he could do it against Wolves, but I don't think the chance is so high. And obviously he's had a lot of rest over the World Cup and stuff like that. I don't think the chance is so high that it's going to happen. So I'm going to captain him again. Plus he missed out the FA Cup games and stuff like that. I know he came on, I think, in the Carabao Cup fixture because obviously they were chasing the game. But yeah, he didn't start that. So I think he'll be fine to play, Man United, then Spurs, then Wolves. So I'm going to go for him. Plus, there's no real other standouts in my team. The only other 2 players I'd probably look at, or 3 players, is Saka, Rashford and Salah. And I don't think there's enough upside to take it off Haaland. Obviously, if Man United double in 22, then suddenly I'm going to be captaining Rashford that week anyway. But for this week, I've just got to go for the easier home fixture and go for Haaland. So that is my team. The plan is to roll the transfer, play Ben White ahead of Shaw, and not sell Mitrovic. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Give it a like, hit subscribe, and I'll catch you soon.